Hello, everybody. It's Brian and Miss Berlin and Mr. Betcher for Breaking Down Security.
Hello.
Hey.
All right. Miss Berlin, why you don't look like you're in your normal confines of Ohio?
I am in, outside of Annapolis.
Annapolis, Maryland?
Maryland, in a hotel.
On purpose? It's for a conference, right?
Drove a cat to DC. This is my second not fully cross country, but second long road trip with a cat this year.
Did the cat travel well?
Different cats.
Huh.
Yeah, they traveled fine. It's way easier to drive a cat straight through.
Okay.
When I flew to Denver and drove a cat back to Ohio, that was 17 hours.
Wow.
Straight through, and then this was only 9.
So what is this, cat delivery as a service or something? What are we looking at?
Yeah, I think I'm just gonna leave InfoSec and just start driving cats around.
I think you've got something there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You're just staying the night and then driving back?
We'll stay 2 nights and then drive back.
Goodness. Okay.
A feline Uber service.
Oh.
Yes, exactly.
Nice.
And think of a couple names from, but I probably shouldn't say it on the podcast.
Yes. We'll lose our
Use your imagination.
No, I'm good. Cool. Well, I hope you have safe travels back to Ohio.
Thank you.
What's the weather like right now there in DC?
Cold.
Oh God. Yeah. Okay.
But it's supposed to be like 60 tomorrow, so.
Oh, that's good. Okay.
Yeah, not too bad.
All right. Well, get out of there before rush hour gets you, so. Yeah. All right. Mr. Betcher, how you doing?
Doing good.
Yeah. How's
same old.
How's tricks over there at your company? You having any malware issues?
We never have malware issues. Come on.
That's a filthy lie, and you know it.
We go searching for that because we can't get enough.
Oh, I see.
Come on, somebody get some malware here. Jeez.
Are you just trying to get people infected? Click on this link. I need something to do.
Well, I mean, we're not actively, but we are hoping that something happens. That way we can go seek it out and destroy it.
I mean, you could just go from hotel to hotel because every computer that I've ever seen in the public area of a hotel has malware on it. So you could just hop from hotel to hotel.
Yes.
I'll get on this one. I'll forward whatever it is to you.
All right. Sounds good.
I think that's why I've stopped using those. Back in the day, I used to use those to print my boarding passes, and I was like, nope, I'm just not going to do that anymore. Because the first thing you do is you log into your email to get you get the email or whatever, and it's like, well, if you're just giving somebody, if it's got a keylogger on it, your email address, password, and whatever. So yeah,
no thanks.
Yeah, no kidding. All right. So, little housekeeping before we go. I did not mention it last week, and I had to accidentally, I had to add some additional audio at the end of the podcast. So, Layer 8 conference is going to be going on, June 6th, 2020 in the Rhode Island Convention Center. They are doing scholarships for diversity purposes. So if you are interested in trying to go to Layer 8 conference, more information, go to layer8conference.com. That's layer 8 with a number conference.com.
That's a really good conference too.
Really?
They had the coolest thing last year. They had a pickpocket competition.
Oh, okay.
Because it's a purely social engineering conference, right?
Oh,
so
okay.
You opted in, right? And if you did it, I think you wore a piece of tape on your shoulder or something, right?
Oh, all right.
And you would have they had a bunch of wallets in covered in orange duct tape or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Wallets, keys, money clips, all of this kind of stuff that you would just have on your person or in your bag. And your job was to try and pickpocket the other people that were playing.
I see.
And the people that ended up with the most stuff at the end won.
Now, so it's only in your back pocket because
it's anywhere. You can put. I'm not sure if they said you have to keep one in your back pocket, one in your bag, or whatever. But
okay.
they had them in multiple places because I saw someone take one out of a backpack.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I keep my wallet in my front pocket nowadays because it's a lot thinner than it used to be. But I figure anybody who can.
Your back pocket or your wallet?
I was talking about my wallet being in my front pocket.
Okay.
Because I figure
Yeah,
anybody.
I was wondering, okay, what's thinner, the front pocket, the back pocket, the wallet?
The wallet is thinner. Yes. I used to have
Okay.
one of them big fat wallets for some reason, but I started putting it in my front pocket after I ended up with sciatica, which is, old person thing. But, anyway, so to get back to my thing here. So if you're interested in going, you, tweet to Layer WorkshopCon at WorkshopCon on Twitter and tell them why you're interested in social engineering and OSINT topics, and include the hashtag #SendMeToLayer8, the number 8, and then they'll select folks from those tweets with an emphasis on being on folks from underrepresented or minority groups. So in terms of sponsorship information, send an email to sponsors at Layer8 if you're interested in sponsoring them, and Saturday, June 6th. So there you go. And from last week and the week before, we had, what's her name on Twitter? I forget. Circuit Swan. We had Circuit Swan on for a Diana Initiative, and that's going on August 6th and 7th, 2020. And you can find more information at dianainitiative.org. Okay, so we've already wasted 7 minutes of time with our interview this week. Apologies. I'm going to bring her on right now. Her name is B. Hughes. She lives in San Francisco. And the interview we're going to be talking about tonight was inspired by her tweets. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Cool. All right. So you have a bit of an
do like an intro?
Yeah. Tell us your origin story.
Oh, God. I got into security the same way everyone did, by enjoying other people's lack of security in the 90s, and finding free online Unix hosts in which you could learn. And from there, I kind of fell into a career doing that because it seemed good fun and I didn't get that caught.
Nice.
So, and from there, I've bounced around Europe, Australia, and now I'm in the land of freedom.
Okay, land of freedom. All right.
And you used to work with Lee.
I used to work with Lee Brotherson 1,000 years ago in London, before he moved to Canada and became a real Canadian. And where I used to work at Puppet Labs, and then I worked at Etsy. I was recently at Stripe, and now I'm waking everyone up in the middle of the night by working for PagerDuty.
Nice. Okay, so as we said, this interview was inspired by one of your tweets, and it goes, really do want to do a follow-up conference talk on why most people's threat models are about as realistic as live free or die hard. Yeah.
True.
Why is that? Why are people or companies' threat models very, not realistic?
To start with, Die Hard's past 3 don't exist. They're like subsequent Indiana Jones films that also don't exist. But it's, I think, probably the exciting media circus, and no one wants to be worrying about boring things when they can worry about exciting, flashy things. And
that's what gets the attention.
Yeah, like $1 million 0 day in your iPhone is much more exciting than I haven't patched my CentOS machine in 3 years. Certainly one is more likely to be on the stage at Black Hat, despite the fact one of them is a lot more relevant to the attendees at Black Hat. A good patching talk, thrilling though that would probably be very useful at Black Hat, but you're never going to see that because where's the media hype in that?
Nobody wants to listen to that.
I used to go on Reddit and people would be like, oh, here's my uptime on my Linux box. And they would show like 5 years. And being a security guy, all I would think about is that means you haven't patched your kernel at least in 5 years. So you have a 5-year-old vulnerable, kernel exploit on your box or what have you. It used to be a badge of honor on your uptime on Linux, but all it means is you haven't patched your shit in forever. So
yeah, shell shock anybody?
Yeah, exactly, or heartbleed or what have you. So
I mean, shell shock's old enough that even slashed-up people were around when it was written.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Is Slashdot still a thing?
Sadly, yes, and it's got worse, and I'm sure many people have visited there and are like, no, it's fine. But yeah, my friend recently pointed me at a posting there in reference to them or someone else leaving GitHub, and the comments were caustic, I believe, as being overly polite. So that was eye-opening that angry Perl writing sysadmins still exist on the internet.
FARC was something that I also was involved with back in the day as well.
Yeah.
FARC.com, yeah.
I forgot about that.
Yeah. So what are credible threats in a normal workplace? Does it depend on the industry you work in, or is it the people themselves that are still the problem?
I'd say like people are obviously the problem, but if you work in a place without people, then your business is not going to do great. And they're pretty key to the modern business. From what I've heard,
people are the most problem for everything. Yeah.
Yeah, like animals tend not to be a security problem.
Right.
Predominantly cats not included.
I don't know. There's a lot of squirrels causing outages of electrical
outages
plants.
are fine, but I wouldn't call it. Yeah, like they can annoy network admins all they want, but it's like squirrels with O-Day is not a worry in my threat model. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, and Monday's going to be really embarrassing. But I'll take that risk. I mean, for some people, like the NSA is a valid person to have in your threat model. I'm not a US citizen, so the NSA features in my threat model as they can spy on everything I do, and I have no say in that matter. They are allowed to by law. I can't vote to get rid of them. So do they feature in my day-to-day threat model? Not especially, because they're slightly well-funded. There's definitely more of them. They definitely have more research and more capabilities. So like finding out who actually is in your threat model is like pretty key, I think, to doing a security. Like at Stripe, quite a finance-based company, so anyone who wants money for free is like a fairly valid. And like some nation states in that North Korea has made a habit of hitting like the SWIFT networks and going after Bitcoin exchanges, which is like kicking a puppy when it's already down and dead, and has been heavily sedated. But it's still a way to make money. So like some nation states could theoretically be in the threat model. When I was at Etsy, we weren't that worried about nation states because we mostly protected things made out of yarn. And I don't know how good the NSA is at knitting and needlecraft, but I imagine they can probably just hire for that rather than having to defraud customers.
So
I would think that there's two kinds of threats. There's the ones that want money, and then there's the hacktivist, right? Which aren't motivated necessarily by money, just politics or emotion or beliefs. Yeah. And that's pretty much it. I mean, at the root of it, it's all money, whether it's a nation state, intellectual property, things like that. It all comes down to money / power, right? Why is it so important that you want to know who it is? I would think it doesn't really matter who it is. It's always the motive, the value of things that you have to protect, right?
But that value changes depending on who's attacking you. like the people who are going after Swift networks are going to be doing much larger scale things than people who are just trying to like steal someone's account and get all the money out of it. So you have the level of sophistication of the attacker, which is dictated by who they are. Not everyone has the same attack abilities.
Yeah, they have different TTPs too, like depending on like if you know who it is, then they might try and attack things a different way or go through a different avenue.
Yeah, and their budget will change depending on who they are. And like seeing as defense is all about raising the cost to attackers until they find someone else to pick on, which is not a great sense of community, but it is certainly what we've decided on. Then making sure it's too expensive for whomever seems a better move than just assuming all attacks are created equal.
Yeah, but I mean the biggest issue, and I doing some prep for the show, I looked up like threats to companies, and like the first 5 or 6 links were the insider threat. And I'm like, well, yeah, okay. And, I went to a conference and I was telling everybody before the show here, they were talking about, non-malicious insider threat. And I'm like, how is that a thing? Non-malicious insider threat. And it was, the idea of the non-malicious insider is somebody who, circumvents policy or procedure or security controls because they can't do their job effectively. The one question I've got is, what happens in that case? Is it a point where security has failed when we create policies or procedures or security controls that make doing work untenable?
Yes, security has totally failed.
Mm-hmm.
If the long seated argument of you will stop phishing if you stop people from opening PDF attachments. And you're like, cool, you've just made your entire your entire recruiting team unable to function, as their job is literally to receive anonymous PDFs from the internet and read them from a variety of sources throughout the world. That is one of the main reasons for them to come into work. And you're like, they shouldn't do that. So they're going to do that because they care more about still keeping their job than whatever it is you say. And that is not a failing of the recruitment team for doing the very reason they were employed. That is a failure of the security team for not giving them either tools that will read the PDFs for them or giving them a more secure sandbox or finding another alternative or going, you can open PDFs. That's literally your job. How can I help you beyond that? I don't see how blaming the user in the majority of these situations is actually valid. It just seems like when people start running BitTorrent clients, which I'm not convinced is still a thing, but that is the main threat everyone talks about.
I've seen it show up on a sim a couple of times recently.
Yeah, but it's not like common. It's not like, oh yeah, it'll be someone torrenting again. It won't be, because someone will just find a sketchy site to download it and stream it before they work out how to use a torrent client. But that's like, yeah.
Yeah, I've stopped using BitTorrent because open directories on Reddit so much better and easier. As long as it's not to .ir domain, I'm pretty, I'm feeling pretty safe about, or .ru. I'm feeling pretty safe about that,
Yeah, like, which is an interesting threat model, as like MKV videos or just any video format is a spicy world of trusting user-supplied data. But that's there's never been any bugs in VLC.
Great.
Trail of Bits didn't have that as their intern projects. But like for actual business functions, if you put up too many barriers to people doing their job, then they have a choice of either I can do my job, which I'm paid for, or I can listen to you, and you're telling me to stop doing my job, and you don't sign my checks. So why would I listen to you again and not just go around it by this method I can to do my job? And security people are super bad at this. Like, find me a security person who hasn't circumvented any security control at their work to get their job done.
All the time.
Well, because the rules don't apply to the security person; it's to the other folks.
That is.
They're inherently secure.
That's right. That's right.
Or you have the IT department where everyone's a domain admin.
Yeah, I mean, it makes your life easier.
I'm fine for everyone to be a domain admin. They just don't log in with that account every day. They have a separate account. Then everyone can be domain admin.
Right.
But yeah, like I don't think I've had a job where I have not been gone, well, I need to do my job. I'm just going to disable this thing or run this thing on this port or do something because like when I was an angry teenager, I had a job doing data entry, and it was all done it was a banking place because why else would you employ teenagers to do data entry? And most of the fields were the same. So I wrote, there was a macro function in the terminals we were using. So I just wrote a macro to type in all the fields that never changed and thus save time and improve efficiency. And then got in absolutely loads of trouble for doing that. Because I shouldn't be doing such things on their fancy mainframe. And it's like, yeah, I'm going to do that because that's my job and this is tedious as hell. So I'm just going to do it quicker if that seems fine with you.
They left it open for you to do.
Right.
Yeah, but the other argument, like if you didn't want me to run this bit of software, then you would have installed Santa and Carbon Black.
Right. Well, everybody can be domain admin as long as they're admin of their own domain. So Amanda's domain, Mr. Betcher's domain, then you just, set up some kind of, hierarchy so that everybody's
that sounds like terrible.
What?
Are you in charge of Windows licensing?
Yes,
right.
Yes, I am.
How you get paid?
That's right. $1 billion idea right there. Yeah.
Not like they need more money.
So we were talking about threats, perceived or otherwise. What about so how do I say this? Oh my God, and this happened to me. So we had a named vuln, God knows which one. Dirty Cow, I think, was one that came to mind. So I'm sitting there doing my job, doing the thing. Dirty Cow drops. I have to drop everything to explain to senior leadership that it's not a problem because it doesn't affect us, or this is not a problem because of X. Do we have a problem with communication, or is the media to blame for perceived threats that become like, the SPECTRE and the meltdowns, where everybody was talking all about those things and they didn't, you can't patch them. So, I've got the CISO or the CIO of my company, and they're like, well, we need to fix this now. And I'm like, well, some IT or IS guy is like, well, there's nothing to patch. It's pretty theoretical. The only reason it's kind of a big deal is because it's got a fancy name, and dark reading mentioned it. So how do we get around, or how do we better communicate to our senior level folks that it's a theoretical issue, there's no working exploit for it yet quote unquote. How do we explain to our management in a better way, so that we're not spending hours in meetings, $1,000 meetings to downplay what is really not a threat?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. I've not been able to successfully get it across to some people because they don't want to hear it. They're going to end up trusting dark reading over the people that they're paying for their professional opinion. Yeah. I think.
Really goes back to the whole. Well, if he's a consultant, then he knows things, but the employees, they're, don't really listen to them.
Oh my God!
Right? Don't you hate that?
Yeah. What is it? What does it take $50,000 for a CISO to listen to what exactly was being told by his InfoSec team? Assuming the consultant costs that much. So, yeah.
More often than not, I found it's the security team worrying about these things more than the whatever level. Definitely, I have gone on information that's like, this is a critical vulnerability, and then hours, days, months, weeks later going, yeah, that wasn't, I should just stop trusting this source for all of their scary, the sky is falling releases, because you can only do that so many times. Right. I personally did that too many times, I would say, when I was at Etsy, so I apologize to all my co-workers then. But, you know, I will say other things, but that won't help. So yeah, I've not had management panicking at me going, there's a security hole. Far from it in my experience.
Depends on their appetite for patching, right, as well. So if you get a feel for, God, these guys can patch, you know, in a day or two, all of their servers, then telling them, hey, we have a critical one, it needs to be patched, kind of goes over a lot easier than, oh, my Linux box has been up for 1,000 days. That's awesome.
Right. So B, you've obviously worked in a unicorn type environment where your CISO, your C levels, and your upper management don't freak out when, you know, the latest name vulnerability comes out, or are we just, you know, not lucky enough to live in the real world? Because I don't know. Mr. Betcher and I have worked together at another place where, you know, that happened at least more than once that I remember. So, did you just have your management trained better than ours?
I don't know that you can train management.
Well, it's called managing up, right?
Yeah, that's not my skill.
Oh, okay.
just as Lee, he used to be my manager.
Oh. Well, there's
why Lee doesn't manage people anymore.
Yeah.
That's me for HR, but that's a separate joyful discussion. I guess it depends how hands-off your management is, but I don't know. Generally, try and work places where people trust you to do your job. But I clearly have a very lucky track record in these things.
And those are some pretty big companies, so I don't even know if that kind of stuff would hit their desks, right?
Yeah, they probably had some other things to worry about.
Okay.
So, like, what was that big one that everyone worried about? Heartbleed. Who says bug names are a bad thing? Like, they were aware of that one, but some of the other ones, like, yeah, cool. I suspect you're doing your job.
Right. So, does it depend on the size of the company? I mean, you've not worked for small companies, but I mean, I don't know. I guess what I'm trying to get to is, you know, what can we do as information security professionals to help, you know, gain more security awareness, or to build that trust in an environment so that they're not harping on you for those things. I mean, I think I probably failed at my job previously, but you know, what could I do now for a client, for instance?
I mean, it would be nice sometimes to have that kind of, like, hey, I've heard this thing because I am aware of the security is this bad, rather than like, I assume you kids are fine. So I don't know. I've only really spent the last 10 years at startups, so I am lucky in that regard. Grossly exploited, but lucky. So
right.
Yeah.
Miss Berlin, what have you done when you know, you've got customers? You work in an MSSP, so you must have customers coming to you all the time asking,
yeah,
"Oh my God, what do we do?"
It's usually customers. Yeah. So yeah, it's usually customers freaking out and asking us what they should do or what we're doing to help them or whatever. Our standard go-to has always just been to write them a blog post and send it to them that really just regurgitates everything else anybody in the industry has been saying, because for some reason they want to hear it from us. So with like, if there's any kind of vulnerability that requires an update, it's basically like, this is the update. This is like the short version of what you should do. This is the long technical version of what you should do. And here are all the links of more information if you want to hear it from like the people that actually found out about it. But yeah, a lot of times if they're freaking out, they just want to know if they're justified or not. You know, sometimes it's like like a Cisco vulnerability or something, like, oh, you're running all Palo Alto, so you don't really have to worry about it. That's more of a simple one, but yeah, same idea.
So what happens if they're kit? So a lot of times what we'll see is a vulnerability, Heartbleed in this case, or, you know, or there was a breach like the, what was it, Citigroup? What the struts vulnerability that caused the massive Equifax. You know, when the news comes out, there's no information. So of course everybody's freaking out. It would almost make sense for people to go, just chill, give it a day or two. You know, we don't even use struts in our environment, so, you know, you shouldn't even worry about that. Or
everyone uses struts somewhere.
Wow. Okay. Well, you're just black cloud today, ain't you? Yeah.
Everyone uses Jira. Everyone uses struts, or everyone uses some enterprise thing. There will be struts underneath it somewhere.
Gross. Yeah. I remember working with our DevOps folks at a previous company, and they swore up and down they didn't use Java. And then I was like, well, why is Java installed in this box then? And they're like, well, Chef uses it because of one thing. And I was like, well, okay, so technically it's a plugin that we don't enable, but, you know, because of that, we have to have Java. So it's like, what is it, like LaTeX or, you know, something else that just pulls in a dependency, so it has to be installed on the box because it refers to that at some point. Yeah, I mean, that's just one example of some of the stuff that I saw in a lot of these other discussions about, you know, threats to every organization. One of them was, you know, knowing what you have in your environment. So like the SANS security controls, you know, mapping those, know what services you have in your organization, what software, what hardware, what technologies you're implementing. Gets really hard though if you're using something like Node or, you know, whatever to do your stuff, because, you know, gets real bad real quick. You have to buy additional layers of, you know, detection or dependency checks. So most all of us have worked in a shop like that. But yeah, the amazing. Go ahead.
I feel like there's some things that should be included no matter what in everybody's threat model.
Like what?
What do you think?
Like what?
SharePoint admins.
Yes. SharePoint admins.
I promised myself I wouldn't bring up Edward Snowden in this, but
I didn't mention anyone by name.
I know I did. My bad. Drink. Yeah.
Oh, I guess he is a famous SharePoint admin. Sorry.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's more like a general insider threat and someone with a CD burner in a modern age. You should be instantly distrusting of. But yeah.
But things like ransomware or insider threat, like generally should be in everyone's threat model.
Yeah,
right?
if you're a business, then your CFO and CSO, C something O, your C-level will get things saying, hey, can you quickly wire me this money?
Right.
And that will like happen regardless of your vertical and your size. And just the like ridiculousness of those will vary, but that is, there aren't companies who don't get those. Well, I mean, there aren't companies above 10K who don't get those.
Yeah.
And like ransomware, if that isn't in your threat model, then good luck with those backups.
So for
or lack thereof.
Yeah. So for like better than 70% of companies out there, ransomware, malware, and insider threat are probably the three things you should be looking at begin with. And then, maybe environmental factors like tsunami, hurricanes, fires, floods, that kind of stuff.
Well, they're more disaster recovery than actual security incident.
That's fair. That's fair.
I mean, to a degree, arguably ransomware is a natural disaster. And it's no more a security incident than, say, all your machines getting wiped and someone demanding money for it. It is a real test of your backups until until they have ones that go after the backups, and then you're like, cool. But those are all you must be this tall to ride, and like in the modern day, that is the base level of washing your hands before surgery that you have to do, and then you're like, not your real threat model, but your specific things that apply to you goes on beyond there. And your threat model can be governed by what compliance you have to do. As auditors are a threat, and a very real one, as they will demand screenshots of things, and you will hastily paste them into a Google Doc, and thus give away all of your internal infrastructure information in a Google Doc to someone else.
And technically, you're sharing that with Google too at some point, because I'm sure
if you use Google Docs and Google's in your threat model, then you are Facebook running the largest Outlook environment this side of Redmond.
I guess it depends on paranoia. If you used a OneDrive link or something like that too, you could argue that Microsoft may have access to that as well. So, do we need to break down our risks and our threats based on like length of time? So like a short-term risk or a long-term risk or a medium-term risk, like, what happens if this hard drive fills up? That would be like a short-term risk. The long-term risk would be like, what happens if the data center goes down? Medium risk would be, ransomware attack, something, like break it down into like 1 day, 1 week, 1 month kind of thing. Or because when you're making a threat model, you're like, well, ransomware. And I guess it depends on the scope of what you're looking for too. If you're worried about users, then it would be a particular system versus the overarching organization. How complicated can the threat model get in this, is I guess what I'm asking.
You seem determined to do disaster recovery.
I know, I'm sorry. Well, denial of service is a thing. What happens if you bring down your CDN? What happens if your CDN goes down? Or, what happens if a denial of service does happen? That, it could put you into disaster recovery at that point.
Oh, there are many security outs that put you in disaster recovery land. But yeah, if a hard drive fills up, I mean, who even has hard drives now? I mean, again, over in startup land, we don't believe in hard drives.
Everything's serverless.
Everything's SSD.
We just have some S3 bucket and just keep putting more things in that and hoping no one makes it public.
World writable.
Yeah, that'll be fine. Historically, that's always been fine for everyone.
Okay. Well, I mean, you've mentioned S3 buckets. So would security hygiene be something? If they're not following the process and they stand up an S3 bucket, and I'll just leave it world writable for a couple seconds, and that's 2 months ago, and they've been filling it full of stuff. Would a poor security hygiene be something, or is it just making sure you have proper security controls in place for those particular threats, and that would reduce it, or
But yeah, with the washing your hands analogy that now I've set my mind on.
Yep.
Definitely, like anything temporary will outlive you, and that's so like leaving something world writable for 2 minutes. When Amazon decommission US East 1, that will still be world writable, because that is how temporary things work. So I don't know, not giving people the power to create world writable buckets or world readable. I guess world readable is a little more worrying than world writable, unless you're a finance department. So yeah, denying world readable by default and you having to go via some special case for something world readable, that is an obvious control for the world of S3. There are many things, even Amazon have some themselves, of what is the health of my AWS deployment and what basic things can I do? And once you turn off the please list every single port that I don't have a firewall rule on, you can actually get some useful signal out of it. But
right.
The quest for useful defaults in modern software died a long time ago, I feel.
Yeah, I know Google and Amazon both, they're starting to look at third parties or configurations with, a bit more of an acerbic attitude. It's like, well, the S3 bucket was open. Why didn't Amazon, fix that or do whatever? And Amazon's just like, it works as planned. S3 buckets, be S3 bucketing, that kind of thing. We can't secure, if we secure it and it breaks something, we're screwed. If we secure it and it, if we don't secure it, then, we get screwed. So a lot of AWS.
It's like Nord trying to blame their provider for them failing to configure the out-of-band management thing, and then their hosting provider going, oh button, why did you say this? This is
right.
You want to play this game, we can. And it's like, yeah, using VPNs considered harmful.
Yep. Well, even if they did have labeling in there, it's like, oh, we've noticed you wanted to make this S3 bucket world writable. Are you sure you want to do that? Are you sure you're sure? That kind of stuff. And, eventually people get tired and just keep hitting the yes button until it allows them to do so. So maybe there's no good answer there.
I mean, people should. It's the thing, like, people will keep hitting whatever button they need until they get their job done.
Until it works.
Yeah. And to a degree, this is security should be engaging to find the user requirements for people to be able to get them to do their job in a secure way.
Right.
And if you turn off enough buttons so that they can't make world readable buckets, and they're out there having to make their own AWS account on their own credit card so they can farm this data off, it's like at that point they are somewhat negligible.
Right.
You have gone off the beaten path here.
Right.
But up until that point, I firmly blame security for not being more accommodating.
Yes, I have a story about a salesperson who stood up their own EC2 instances because it was a pain in the ass working with the DevOps or the IS team to make that happen. So he was paying it on his monthly credit card. So,
yeah, I mean, I've talked to people that I think it was somebody that I knew or just like met at a conference had done like sysadmin stuff for the DNC. A while back, and didn't like people. There was no process financially in place or through policy, procedure, anything to say who could and who couldn't stand up S3 buckets for stuff. So there was different like sections and departments that were just like, oh yeah, I need one for this and I need one for that, and none of it would go through the security process. So at that point, like, it's still a risk and it's still something that's should be in your threat model, right? But it's at that point, it's even outside the scope of what you would be looking at, right? You just have this random thing out there. And in this case, the girl's like, they had called her complaining that part of their software was broken and they had never heard of the software before. They had no idea that it was out on the internet. So yeah, that's another just completely other level, I think.
Yeah, that sounds like a lack of overall technical leadership on a level higher than, say, the security team.
Oh yeah.
Well, that's also a relationship thing. So the person there either didn't feel like they could talk to the security team, or they had tried to and they were told no and not given a good reason or a good enough reason or a reason that it makes sense, or hey, you got to put in a ticket or whatever. So there's a relationship issue, there's a communication issue there. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot going on at that organization, I think, that could work. Could a lot of threats, so I have a question for everybody, including you, Mr. Butcher. Could a lot of threats be lessened by proper communication? And I mean, yes, it sounds rhetorical because we've obviously made that reference there, but proper notifications or alerts, or, like, hey, Bob stood up an S3 bucket. And then that would, allow the security team to know, hey, there is an S3 bucket out there. Did Bob secure it properly? No, he didn't. Reach out to Bob and have him secure it. Or, does proper notification make it easier for us to do our jobs in many respects? I'll start with B.
Yeah, I would say yes, but that isn't proper notification. That is a fire hose of S3 events or AWS events that it is completely untenable to try and get on top of.
Really?
Just being told, like, someone has done something, and you're like, cool, now I have to find out what they've done, to what degree this has access, what they're actually trying to do, and this is like trying to install a stable door once the horse has made it to another village. To the dismay of everyone at RSA, I don't think more alerts are going to fix things. I think fewer alerts are going to fix things, because who doesn't have too many alerts? Anyone?
True.
Anyone have too few alerts? You're like,
all of my customers, because that's what we do.
Yeah, but like, wouldn't it be nice if rather than have like 1,000 alerts, you had 100 stronger signal alerts? And I don't think someone has made an S3 bucket is where that should be happening.
Right.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Because I know working at startups or in heavy development environments, the security team appears to be, and at least depending on who you talk to, the roadblock for a lot of these things. So having more notifications probably, like you said, is not helpful, because the CI/CD pipeline's got to go 90 miles a minute, whatever, and security's sitting here in first gear, trying to just keep up. So,
like, in some environments that's great, but in my world, like, if you're not engaging people before the thing happens, then there's like whole teams versus one of you. They are going to create infrastructure and things much quicker than you're going to be able to go through it. So, like, you have to talk to them before things get built and then review it after, as opposed to it's the classic, like, we built this thing, go secure it. And that's basically what you're doing with this S3 notification.
Right.
So I deployed a bucket. Good luck.
So with the amount of automation in heavily developed environments, should the kinds of threats that we're looking at, permissions issues or network issues, ingress, egress filtering, those kinds of things that could allow, RDP being on the outside, those should security folks be looking at, say, the automation pipeline to find ways to make it more secure, to, this was not necessarily, hey, this was deployed, but hey, this was deployed insecurely. Is there a good way of doing that? Or is that some instrumentation that has to be built inherently per shop?
I think as people kind of head towards using one of 2.5 different cloud providers, then the tooling is going to be more specific for those. And in this beautiful new Kubernetes-based world where everyone needs to run a Kubernetes cluster because you can't let Google or Amazon do it, then obviously a lot of that can be done via either things that already exist or things that happily plug into other things. And there is like free and expensive tooling for that, and many of them will provide you alerts. But the where you put that in the CIA pipeline and what it does is kind of the important bit. Like, you can make all these things generate lots of email. I still don't think email makes things more secure, but if only Google Wave had taken off. Or Slack alert.
Google Wave. Yeah, I loved Google Wave.
Yeah. But like all Google products, dies. So good luck using GCP.
Yeah. Yeah.
Time is ticking.
Google Voice doesn't die. I can't live without my Google Voice number.
By Google Voice, you mean its original name when it was an external company that they killed?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Good luck with that. So yeah, you can. The more you can automate this, the more you can move at the speed of the teams that are using automation. The more you have to sit there and do manual review, then the further behind you get. And asking, like, is me sitting here reviewing 10 different like Docker images in Vi versus building something that can automatically review them as they come in? Like, sure, like 10, let's have a bigger number. Like 15, 20 years ago, you'd be writing that in Perl going, what on earth's Docker? But whereas now, the scale at which things move, I will have a tool that does this because there's no way I can do it otherwise. Back when you used to have physical hardware, it was much easier to have a handle on your infrastructure because it moved much slower. Now,
right.
Uptime on machines is measured in hours in some places.
Yep. Yeah, because you don't patch the containers or images or Docker images, you blow them away and just put new stuff in.
Yeah, if you're running ImageMagick, you don't keep that instance around for like more than a few requests because it's running ImageMagick. So yeah, there's no bragging about kernel uptime on those hosts.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we kind of got off on a DevOps thread, but I'm cool with that because I've been doing my contact hours for PMP stuff, and some of the discussion is about agile development and how things work in an agile environment. And as a security guy, the first thing I'm thinking is, okay, the important person in this is like the PM, because if you can get to the PM, you can control some of the workflow either through with the Kanban boards or whatever. Adding a user story of we need to add this product enhancement or what have you. Am I wrong in that, coming from a guy who's trying to get his PMP or whatever for agile development? Who are the people in a DevOps environment that information security people should be banging on to try to get changes to implementation or whatever included?
Who is the customer? Who is the stakeholder? Those are the people to get on board in every project. It's like not a super helpful answer, but
no, those were some of the questions that came up during that, and I was like, yeah, okay. Yeah. But the stakeholder is somebody I don't see. It's like guy who visits the website kind of thing. Who obviously expects us to be secure, but maybe there's a secondary stakeholder inside the company being someone else. But yeah, no.
But yeah, the stakeholders in that are the customer is. Your customer is the team bringing this to you. The customer of the end product is the person on the website, but the stakeholders are the team bringing it, the team whose infrastructure it runs on, your team. Like, if it's going to run suddenly thousands of AWS instances, then the finance team would be a legitimate stakeholder in that. Yeah. Like, could we just have one big instance, or can we have lots of little smaller instances that ultimately cost more but provide more security? So finding out who stakeholders actually are versus just the one person gives you more angles to go like, yes, we want to do it this way and we want to do it securely, and this is how, and this is why, and this is the actual benefits. Because no one wants security for security's sake other than security people.
Right.
People want security for the things it provides, not for the security is fun and interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as long as we can, show the developers and everything that we're trying to not hinder them, are they more likely to help out, or are we going to have to, kind of push ourselves in there with user stories or what have you in the
yikes?
What's that? What's yikes?
As much enablement as you can bring to the table.
X is for user stories. As someone who once heard about Scrum, I am forced to speak in really disjointed sentences because I want to appeal to someone who writes user stories. It just doesn't make sense to me, but I'm glad that we're slowly moving away from that in the world.
What is the new hotness if it's not user stories?
I mean, we're almost living in a post-Kanban world, but excuse my bad Japanese. Yeah, I don't know. If you're not bringing it to people in the, come on, brain, you can do this. In the how can you make it work for them? Then they're just going to build it anyway.
Okay, that's fair.
I mean, and also if they're not listening to you, then I hear the job market's quite good right now. And don't work at a place where people aren't going to listen to you. And I realize not everyone has that privilege, but if you're at a place where everyone is hostile towards you and you don't think you can fix that security relationship, then it's okay to not stay in that and go and find work elsewhere. And also know that you can't win every security fight. There may be times where you have to go, the business has decided a thing, and we may not love that thing. The other teams would not love it about the same amount if we did the thing we want. So we may have to concede this round. And by doing that more gracefully, we maybe can call this back in later for something else we deem more important, or we can focus on this in a different time when we have different resources. But trying to win every single security fight in a company will not.
Okay. Wow. Okay. Well, I think I don't have any more questions. Mr. Betcher, Ms. Berlin, do you have anything?
Nope.
That was really awesome.
We hit everything.
Right on. B, how would people find you? Are you going to be speaking anywhere in the near future, or what social media outlets do you tend to hang out on that people could pick your brain a little bit more about all these things?
It's mostly Orkut now. Oh no, another dead Google project.
I'm on TikTok all now. I just
oh my god, it's so good.
Now all the young people are leaving. Then
I'm on I know. I told my daughter that I was on TikTok. She's like, oh "My God, Dad, it's so dead now." And I'm like, "All right, fine."
Just delete See, TikTok is a great example of threat models, and everyone's like going, "It's China owned," and they're using it for facial recognition. I'm like, "Yep."
Yeah.
But so is everyone else training their facial recognition.
The entire internet.
Yeah, and you're like, yep, everyone is training everything with people's faces on for facial recognition. And I imagine American companies are just downloading all of TikTok as well.
Yeah,
it has an API and using it for, drumroll, maybe facial recognition. So yeah, just like assuming China or Russia is bad at everything because of, I mean, some of them have history, but like, calm down. There are funny dog videos on there and adorable cats.
Yep.
Yeah.
If your threat model stops you from having adorable cats, I don't know what to tell you.
That's right.
I mostly make a fool of myself on Twitter with a really annoying to type name, but I'm sure
it is very annoying to type.
Yeah, I often forget it and have to cut and paste it. So I'm glad. I'm glad I made that a number of years ago.
Yeah, I was sitting here and I was like, I don't understand what that means. And then I was like, oh, be jamming. Okay, we be jamming. Right on.
Yeah. It's there's a long story. It's not a very good story. I'm mostly on Twitter, coming up with terrible opinions about things and occasionally being proved right and wrong.
Right on. Yeah. So there's links in the show notes to some of her tweets here. B jamming, JAMMING, BEAJAMMINGH. Silent H.
I have nothing but regret.
No, it's okay. You can always change it later if you wanted to.
I've already changed it once.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, okay. Right on. So are you going to be speaking anywhere?
I'm not, sadly. I have not spoken anywhere in a while because besides Toronto doesn't happen every week.
ShmooCon's CFP doesn't close until tomorrow night.
Oh, you got time then.
So you have an entire day to put in.
Yeah, if you need some British wit for your conference, please get in touch.
I'm just going to put your name on my CFP.
Oh, if you need me to do someone else's, I will do anyone's talk blind if there are vague presenter notes. I will happily do that.
Well, they already have Who's slide.
Service I offer.
Yeah.
With hilarious results.
Awesome. Okay. Well, Circle City Con's CFP is still going on too. If you want to go to Indianapolis in June, I think is when it is.
Who doesn't want to go to Indianapolis in June?
Well, I'm going. I've never been, so.
I think that's the key point in wanting to go to Indianapolis in June.
Oh, well.
I've never been to Indianapolis. I'm sure it's lovely.
Well, I always like to go to one convention or conference that is at least 2 time zones away from me in the East Coast direction. So I went to DerbyCon for 5 years and, it's gone. So, Circle City Con or 614 Con or whatever, GurCon, one of those, So I still have to take 2 flights because I can't get a direct flight from Seattle to Indianapolis. So it's all good.
Get a direct flight from anywhere to Indianapolis.
That's true. You got to go through like Dallas or
have to. There has to be somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
This is a Dijkstra's algorithm problem, I feel. But anyway.
Yep. Traveling salesman kind of stuff. Yeah. Mr. Betcher, you are the lead developer of an application that sends people alerts, don't they?
Well, it doesn't send people alerts, but it correlates those things which might broadcast alerts. Now, if you have to concede some security, as we talked about, and maybe ransomware hits, we discussed compliance being a contributive factor in what your threat model should be, right? If you, for example, are under HIPAA, you will need to, I think the rule is you have to prove that the attackers didn't steal any data. So how do you do that? What if you didn't set anything up? Well, thankfully, all Windows 10 boxes have something called the System Resource Utilization Monitor.
Mm-hmm.
And so LogMD will read that and tell you exactly which binaries either received or sent data, which is pretty handy. And it's on there for 90 days by default.
Nice.
Maybe it's 60 days by default. But anyway, that's a good place to start, especially if you didn't have the proper logging to begin with and, correlate all your data to a centralized location, things like that.
Right.
So yeah, that's one thing we built into LogMD that'll help you out.
Right on. And people wanted to discuss LogMD or, logging and, IR and forensics in general. How would they find you? Well,
you can catch me on Twitter. I have my DMs open. So just, send me a text at BetcherPwned, BOETTCHERPWNED.
Right on. Ms. Berlin, tell me about Hackers Health.
We don't have anything for a while.
What?
Actually, I know that I'm using December and January as my Amanda needs to get her shit together months.
Oh,
because I'm very, very far behind in lots of things. So yeah, we're not doing anything until February. We'll be at the social engineering conference that SE Village is putting on in Orlando.
Okay.
We won't have a village, but I'm giving a 3-hour workshop on mental health related things.
Nice.
That I also need to put together. So that's going to be happening in December and January.
Okay.
Yeah, but you can find us at Hackers Health, or me is at InfoSister on Twitter.
Cool. All right. So the podcast, we're on Twitter. You can find us at Brakesec, BRAKESEC. You can follow me on Twitter as well. I normally just retweet or, post things about, food or, Alton Brown, my boyfriend, or, other interesting, InfoSec thing. My wife says that I can have Alton Brown as a boyfriend if I want to. You can't. Don't.
I'm not judging.
Okay, good, excellent. Yeah, smartest guy I know. Anyway, so I'm on Twitter, Brian Brake, BryanBrake, and so we have a Slack. It's very active. If you're interested in joining a community of like-minded individuals that isn't Twitter, if you want to escape the Twitter drama, which, doesn't have a lot, obviously, but, if you're interested in finding a somewhat drama-free zone, send us a tweet to a DM on Twitter to Brakesec, or you can email us at bds.podcast@gmail.com. We have a TPub store. If you want a t-shirt with Miss Berlin's face on it, or if you want some Brakesec swag, go to brakesec.com/store and, hook yourself up with a coffee mug or a sticker.
They make great Christmas presents.
They do make great Christmas presents. Speaking of Christmas presents, you're doing the Hacker Santa thing this year, right?
To a smaller audience.
Oh.
So it's the sixth or seventh year, sixth year that I've done it, right?
Okay.
And we grew from doing it between 30 people to last year almost 500.
God, dog, man.
And when I say we, it's me. Just using a bunch of Python scripts and trying to make it so Google doesn't rate limit me sending out 500 emails at once.
Oh, yeah.
And I've fucked it up every time.
Did you become a spammer and they block you after 200 of 50?
Do, yeah. So I had enough of that and I moved it to Elster. And then next year, I'm working with somebody and I just ran out of time creating like a custom software.
Okay.
Because we wanted to do like cool hacker things where we could like GPG sign things and do a bunch of cool stuff. So it's only to like 150 people this year. So I didn't really open it up to the public or anything.
Yeah, that's all right. Okay. I was going to ask if you wanted to put a link in the show notes, but yeah, we're not going to do that apparently then. So
no, I already matched everybody.
Oh, really? It's already done. Okay.
Yeah, I already matched everybody. So next year I might open it up again. We had a lot of people not send gifts last year.
Oh, that's not right.
Really irritates me because I don't know, like there's nothing I can hold against them. Like, with Reddit or whatever, they have their Secret Santa thing and they can like ban your account or do whatever, right? If you don't send your gift.
Right.
What am I going to do? Dox them? Like I just release their, release their home address. I feel like that's a dick move. So yeah, I'm not going to do that.
Fine. All right. Whatever. Yeah, no, I completely understand. There's no impetus for somebody to sign up and then not do that. So yeah, that sucks. Yeah. The other thing is hard because InfoSec people don't normally the good ones apparently don't divulge a lot of information. And last year I had a hell of a time figuring out a Secret Santa gift for mine. And thankfully I, figured out something to send her. And I got a cool, Where's Spock, thing, like a Where's Waldo kind of book. I'm still trying to find Spock in a couple of those pages, but okay. Well, sorry if you didn't get to do the Secret Santa this year. We'll try again next year.
Victim. I'll open it more to next year when I don't have to be. Yeah. It was a lot of me sorting through spreadsheets and writing shitty Python code that didn't end up working, and then writing more Python code that other people had to help me with, and it was just a gigantic nightmare. That was very stressful. And I have enough things to do. So
sounds like every DevOps implementation I've ever heard of. Anyway, just kidding.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, the Slack, send a DM or send us an email to bds.podcast@gmail.com. I have about 400 or 500 active users, a couple thousand accounts. I was actually looking at alternatives, perhaps using something like Keybase or whatever for encrypted comms, but I don't know if that's stable enough yet. I have started playing with Keybase a little bit and creating rooms and stuff in there. We have a Patreon. So if you are interested in supporting the show, you got something good out of this with B and us here on the show. you can, join our Patreon and help support the show. All the money goes to helping us with hosting fees and the Zoom that we're using to record this. I'd like to thank Michael K. He went way above and beyond. He became a $10 patron. So we appreciate everything he's doing there. So, yeah.
You're muted now, Brian.
Yeah, I'm not supposed to be.
There you go.
Okay. It says your speaker's not working. Please check your connection or use a different speaker. I'm not sure why that is, but anyway, so thank you to Michael K for being a $10 patron. And that was it for this week on Breaking Down Security. Have a great week. Be kind to one another. Take care of yourself because you're the only you have, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Bye.